Welcome back to the Drift and Drag Podcast, episode 2. Last time we talked about, why planer boards are so effective, but here I wanted to make it like a gear guide. We look at pieces of gear. I'm out here and experimenting, and usually that's how I learn. I go out and experiment and then come back and report what I found. That's just how I do it. So whenever you're kind of hearing me talk, I'm talking about some of the experiments I've done, right? Which may not align with what you do. It doesn't mean that my way is the best way. It just means that this is just what I experimented with. So take that into account when I'm making recommendations. It's just simply what I've learned. But before we get into that, let's looking up some information on catfish. Fun catfish fact. According to Wikipedia, we have 51 species of catfish in North America. 51. Now I corroborated that with one of the old In Fisherman books, the Catfish series of books that they wrote, and they quoted 37 species of catfish in North America. So who's right? I don't know. Maybe the In Fisherman book is just older and they found more species since then, or maybe the Wikipedia is wrong. Who knows? But either way, 37 on the low end, 51 on the high end, that's a lot of different species of catfish. And we're not even talking about worldwide, which is about 3,000. That's a lot of catfish in the world. I mean, there's even saltwater catfish, But that's, most of us, we're only targeting one of 3 primary forms of catfish here in North America, and that's blue catfish, flatheads, or channel catfish. But in my lifetime, I've caught white catfish. I've caught black catfish, one black catfish. As a kid, I remember catching a yellow catfish once while we were bluegill fishing. And then I've never caught a flathead. I'm serious, never caught a flathead. As much bluegill fishing as I do, never caught a flathead. Okay, so with gear, rod holders, first thing you're going to do. Now, I love my hand lines. But with hand line fishing, you're typically only going to be fishing with 1 or 2 lines, at most 2. Most of the time, only 1, because it gets very cumbersome. It's unwieldy to use a hand line with 5 or 6 hand lines. So you need a better, more efficient way to manage your line, which means you're going to have to use rod and reel. And in order to have 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 catfish rods out, these big, medium, heavy rods, you're going to have a rod holder. Rod holders, this was at 30 degrees, hold the rod at a good angle to keep line up off of the water, to keep a more direct line attachment so that you don't have the drag of the water affecting the drift and the pull of the planer boards as you're trolling and dragging. Now, a lot of people look at these and they say, oh gosh, that's way too thin, right? No, they're not. They're actually a lot stronger than they look. There's no welded points. They're just bent. And I'm only targeting 20 to 40 pound catfish. So definitely much bigger than eater-sized catfish, but I'm not trying to catch the biggest fish in the lake either. The absolute biggest fish in the lake, I just want them to stay in the lake unbothered to breed. I'm specifically targeting 20 to 40 pound catfish, which is technically a medium catfish, and I only need a medium duty rod holder. That's why I selected the Hills rod holders. Now, there are way bigger, way beefier, way tougher rod holders than this. But this is what I chose because I wanted something I could afford, and 2, something that is not always so popular. I mean, sometimes the more popular solution, I just don't pick it. If it's popular, I just generally almost stay away. Not because it's bad. I just want to try something else to give another perspective. And that's why I chose the Hills rod holders. These are the 8-inch, right? 30 degrees, only holds 1 rod. Good basic entry-level rod holder. It's way bigger than I need to hold crappie rods. And I can use these for my catfish. It holds all my catfish rods. In fact, the bomber and the gunner rods, or I'm hearing me saying Sergeant Major all the time, they're actually too small for this. So this can hold some big rods, right? And it will twist. You get a big catfish on, the rod holder will move sometimes, right? But that's what you want. You want this to give, not the hull of my boat, right? Everybody, so you got to have it. It's got to be so big and beefy. Why? I'm used to catching 20-pound fish on 8-pound test line, although I do have 30-pound on here now. I've caught 20-pound fish on 8-pound test line, hand line. I'm used to using light gear because I'm a finesse fisherman. Therefore, I'm going to choose lighter gear than what most cat fishermen choose. And you see me catching lots of fish with no problem. The number of rod holders you buy and the type of mount is going to depend on your boat. You need to go talk to whomever you're going to buy your catfish rod holders from and get them to set you up on a proper rig on what you want. All right. Next, rods and reels. I am using B&M rods, as you've heard me say. They sponsored the first video in the series on the other the B&M Big Cats with B&M series. They sponsored that. They sent rods for me to test and use and show on the river. They sent 4 rods, the Freedom Series rods, and 1 of their Silver Cat rods. And they all have slightly different actions. They're all, only one rod is shorter. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out somewhere up here. It's a good way to see honestly, of all those rods, the bomber is the one that is the most sensitive just because it's a medium weight rod. There we go again. Medium weight gear because I'm trying to catch medium weight catfish, right? But any of those rods will pull these planer boards just fine. Just because people think they got to have extra heavy gear. I don't understand why cat fishermen think that everything has to be super extra heavy because they don't want to see the rod bend at all. They just want a broomstick. And I don't understand that. I've never understood that, but I have a different perspective because I come at this from a fly fishing tradition, bluegill fishing tradition, crappie fishing tradition, long limber rods, lightweight tackle. I just think differently. Those are the rods I'm using. Are they the best rods? The catfishing rods today are all personal preference. They're all really good. Right? I would recommend that you find something that's perhaps composite, where you have some parts of the rod are carbon fiber and other parts are fiberglass. Some parts may be E-glass, some parts may be S-glass. Gives you sort of best of both because you'll have the lightweight of carbon fiber and the backbone of a carbon fiber, but the flexible tip of fiberglass, which is great for circle hooks and other various kinds of hooks. I would recommend I would pick a rod that's best fit for your body type and your boat type. For me, I'm a tall guy. I have long arms. I need a rod that has a full length handle here. And most of the 7'6" rods are just a little bit shorter than I would prefer them to be. They're adequate, but I would rather have something in the 8 or 10 foot range. Why? Because I'm a fly fisherman. Because I'm a long limber rods. All right. And for instance, tangling with catfish, they're about the only people I found that make a medium catfish rod in a 10 foot length. Perfect for someone like me. But B&M, they were the ones who stepped up and gave the rods. So guess who I'm going to talk about, right? So B&M's answer to that is the bomber rod. It is a medium rod, 7'6", but it has that long rod feel to it. And sometimes on a boat, you don't need 10 feet because you need to have to reach, you're having to reach the tip of the rod to untangle line, and a 7'6" rod is quite practical is actually a lot more practical on a boat. Although crappie fishermen fish with 16-foot crappie rods all the time and don't have any problems. So it all depends on your perspective and where you come from. In general, a medium heavy rod is going to be what you want. It'll have the backbone to fight fish in current, against the pull of a planer board, and heavy weight. The bomber can haul about 6 ounces, and it does fine, but it's going to bend a lot more than what you're used to. It bends a lot more to my liking. Same thing for the Sergeant Major, the gunner. But anyway, pick a medium to medium heavy rod that can pull 5 ounces. I'm only fishing with about 3.5 ounces. And that's about all I need, because I very rarely fish any deeper than about 20 feet of water, sometimes 40 feet on the lower end of the lake, but that's almost never fished deeper than that. All right, let's get to the planer boards themselves. There are several really good planer board makers out there. I mean, really good. And I don't even want to talk about which ones, because I haven't even bought any of them, and I can't testify to their products personally. But what I did was I just made my own. I just made up some here, prototypes. I had thought about selling these, but the amount of time to get it looking good enough to sell, I just don't want to do it. Just got some plexiglass from Lowe's. Had some leftover pool noodles from jug fishing, and just made, they're not pretty. I had some silicone Ace Hardware. This is 5 inches, I think, here. Had some clips. That is literally just a piece of, what do you call that stuff? Zip tie. It's the second one I made. Again, leftover piece of pool noodle. Same basic build. See? And this is what I was trying to do. Make some out of wood. That gap there, I just had these leftover pieces from some of the fishing reels I make, my hand lines. And instead of throwing it away, we're just turning these and making my own sort of what I'm calling dragon egg floats, rattle floats. Craft plywood. Haven't had it on the river yet, but just when you're prototyping, it can look ugly. The whole point is to prove the concept. And out there in the bait tank, it's wanting to float like that. But once you get the weight on it and pull it in the river, it'll do fine probably, but I can't attest to that. But that's just kind of what one of the wooden ones would look like. I would probably come up with a cool curve here, or maybe slightly hexagonal shape here. I don't think I'm going to make these. The amount of time that I have to put into it to try to get this looking pretty. Any piece of fishing tackle you sell has to look pretty and be effective. I don't think I really want to spend the time it takes to make this look good. But anyway, I'm using Scotty clips. The normal setting, good enough. And for the rear, just keychains I got from Walmart. And these are the swivels I got from Sao Gai Lang, which is the reels I'm using. The reels you use, I definitely prefer Abu's, or any sort of modern Abu-like catfish reel. I don't use line counters. I have multicolored line. I can just go by the color, kind of like using lead core line in walleye fishermen and salmon and steelhead, or lead core. This is not lead core. It's just multicolored braid. This is 40-pound test, and I'm going down to 30-pound test monofilament Berkeley big game. I also have some 20-pound test Berkeley big game, just depending on how I want to do. If the water's clear, I might go 20. Most of the time, I just stick with 30. Again, I'm only trying to catch 20 to 40 pound catfish. And you're saying, well, if you catch a 40 pound catfish with 40 pound braid, won't the line break? Remember, I'm used to catching 20 pound fish with 8 pound test monofilament. So 40 pound line for a 40 pound fish is like extra super heavy to me, right? So you have to understand that I'm thinking differently. I also want to use some pop-up rigs for my paternosters. These don't rattle. I don't, there's just a variation on my catfish floats for those of you who like channel catfishing in the summer. The same wine cork floats. I got to clean these up. I just got them off the curing rack. They're not quite dry yet. Just those of you running Santee Cooper rigs, right? Same thing, same principle. You need to let these kind of dry overnight. And then, so as far as planer boards, pick a planer board design that you like. Pick a planer board design where the makers have tuned the boards. Some boards go back a long way. Some boards go out a long way. I think you kind of need both. But just pick which one's going to work for you 90% of the time and go with it. One more thing. Dang, where'd it go? Oh, here. A lot of guys will have planer boards out to the side. They'll have something down below the boat, but they'll also have a rod way back behind the boat. And that's why I'm working on these, which is a float, inline float. This is ash, so it's a little heavy. But the idea is this will float directly behind the boat, probably 100 feet behind, 100, 150, 200 feet even behind the boat, and will clip the same way as your planer board, but be directly behind the boat, right? And this one has an action where it just kind of lazily does this through the water. Gives a little bit of action, which is always good when you're trolling. A lot of guys will just get a swimming pool noodle like this and make a bobber kind of like this out of it. It'll do the same job. You don't have to have anything fancy. I'm currently using Scotty clips. Not sure I like them. I do like them all right, but I think I think I want to try some more clips just so I can decide what I like best. But for now, using Scotty clips and some big honking snap swivels. Makes it easy to get it on and off the line. That's basically what I'm using. Weights, I'm just using, again, homemade. Look, I'm a fishing tackle maker. If I can make the tackle myself, I'm just going to make it myself. Then I'll offer it for sale. People buy it. I make money. You get happy because you catch more fish. I'm just making these. I used to make these and sell these on the website, but I just quit selling them because I wasn't making all that much money off of them. I don't know. Don't ask me how much this weighs. It probably weighs 2.5 ounces. It's just literally BBs and probably a 12 or 16 inch piece of 1/4 inch, what do you call that stuff? Heat shrink tubing. Most of them are even longer than this and get up about 3.5 ounces. As you can see here, same kind of thing. It probably won't fit so far. Come on now. See? Pop-up paternoster. This will keep the float up, right, more vertical, because it's very important with these slinkies on the Black Warrior with the paternoster rig to fish as vertically as you can. Doesn't mean directly vertically. You just need to just be tickling the bottom like they do in the rivers out west for salmon and steelhead when they have long lines behind the boat. You just need to be tickling the bottom like that. You don't want it to be laying down on the bottom like that. You're just going to get hung up. You just want it tickling the bottom, and that'll help it stay. This will definitely help it stay upright. You see what I mean? That's what I mean. So for your Santee Cooper guys, get a float. Just go to Walmart, buy some cheap floats, peg floats if you want. You can make these yourself. I'm thinking about putting a class together to show people how I make stuff. Let me know if you're interested in that. Just comment below. But you know, I just, you know, I already have the gear to make these for my catfish flow for people who are catching cheese baits in the summer. I said, well, let's just take a dozen of them, make some nice corks. Okay, what about line? Like I say, Berkley, 30-pound test, Berkley big game. I think it's back there. And I'm using 40-pound test 12-strand polyethylene. It's the good braid that is often used in salt water for jigging. Very strong. This is 40-pound test, but doesn't catch much water either. And it's really, I've enjoyed this braid. I've enjoyed it. One other thing. Let's see. Hooks. Hooks. I forget the fella's name, but he asked about what type of hooks am I using. I'm using wide gap hooks now. I've made the switch to wide gap hooks. That is, some people, they look at it and you think, oh, it's some sort of modified circle hook. And that's because you're right. It is. Can you see that? Wide gap hook. Now, most people call this a Kahle hook. Eagle Claw owns the name to Kahle, K-A-H-L-E. I say Kahle. This is what, but you know, Eagle Claw owns the name to Kahle, so I just call them wide gap hooks. These I bought online on eBay from jerrystackle.com, just on eBay. 4/0 hooks, perfect for the size sort of bluegill that I'm going to use. A lot of times I'll catch bluegill and put a live bluegill as I'm drifting and trolling, or use my black salties that I've ordered from Anderson Minnow Farm. I'll have to show you my bait tank some other time. Yes, it is a blend of a J hook and a circle hook. J hook, see? Circle hook. Some people might even call this an octopus hook with the tip that way. These hooks are snelled, or I use the dropper loops, which is like a harness, and it, as you can see, that's the comparison to a J hook. Can you see? Hope it's going to be focused on my face, and my focus is back here. Kind of hard. And then compared to a circle hook. Oh, come on now. Oh, there we go. Right. This blends the two. I do like setting the hook, but I also like the idea of a self-hook set, and this really does both. This self-sets pretty well, and then when I catch a fish, you know, I'm going to reel down, then I'm going to snatch up hard to release the clip from the planer board, the line from the planer board, and help set the hook all at the same time, right? So I'm not looking at the hook to do everything, but I am looking at it to help me, right? So, because the wide gap hooks hold a much bigger chunk of bait, right? This is one of my old Catman hooks that I used to import from China. They say this is 10/0, but I only sold it as a 4/0 hook because look at it. You see the difference? Much thicker line. It's really a tuna hook, and it's a true circle hook, non-offset. But you can see that this guy will hold way more bait. 6/0 J hook, 4/0 wide gap. It can hold way more bait. When you look at the size of the hook, I'd have to have a 10/0 one of these, or an 8/0 one of these to equal what this does at 4/0. It's a lighter wire hook, easier hook set. You see how I'm thinking? I don't buy the biggest, heaviest stuff. I buy the most efficient stuff for the class of fish I want to catch. In my case, 20 to 40 pound catfish. And fly fishermen catch way bigger fish on way smaller hooks than this. Trust me. Yeah, they do. You'd be surprised. But anyway, let's see. What else? My reels are, just basically Abu knockoffs from China. I got them for like $35 a piece on AliExpress. They're okay, right? I would rather buy some used Abus and just put some carbon drag wheels, real carbon drag discs in them, and put long handles on them, and just sort of take some old reels that are in good condition and just bring them up to a modern standard, ceramic barrels, ceramic ball bearings, that kind of thing. Really get them nice. And you'd probably still come out cheaper than buying a brand new Abu if you did it that way, right? Just like I buy old-fashioned camera lenses, but sometimes you just need something to get you fishing. So that's why I have those. I'm thinking that's about it. I use, you've seen this on the channel for many years. This old bag here, that's my tackle bag. Something like that could be a good straight back stern planer. My flies. Someone asked about my flies. You were surprised that the catfish hit a fly. Yeah, catfish hit flies. They do. People don't know it, but they do. You see? This is the real reason I ended up starting Black Warrior Lures, because I wanted to do trolling flies. But the trolling flies never sold all that well, because people just, I don't know, they just didn't buy them. Although they catch fish, people just never really bought them. Let me know if you're interested in some. Just email me below or message me if you're interested. I've been back on the fly tying vise, because back in the spring I got a nice, super long 13-foot two-handed fly line and started tying again, and came up with this leech pattern, and that's one of the patterns that you saw them hit where I missed the fish, but he hit that leech pattern. Doesn't look like much, but that feathers and deer hair and a little bit of flash works. Pink and purple, I've heard from, oh gosh, didn't tie it all that well. I've heard crappie fishermen swear that catfish love pink for years. So I decided to tie some pink and purples. These are all what you call streamers. They're not actually flies. A fly is literally an artificial lure designed to copy or mimic a fly, like a house fly or a horse fly or a stone fly. In the summers, I much prefer, that'll catch a lot of bass, sort of a Mickey fin. It's weighted with lead and little bit of, it's a liggity split variant though. Summertime I'll catch a lot of bass and striped bass and spotted bass with these. Sometimes I put eyes on them, sometimes I don't. I don't really like the eyes on them, and it has a UV coloring in that bonds the lead to the shank of the hook. 1/0 hook, J hook, 1/0 J hook. Sometimes I've done some double hooks, trying to mimic a crawfish. Hook here, hook here. All right, now the reason I put those flies on there is simply to attract the fish. That little, I don't know if you can see the kind of little bit of subtle reflection as that's just spinning and flipping through the water. You see that little reflection, and that catches a fish's attention. And the little hairs are undulating in the water. That catches their attention, and they come closer to investigate. But they also sense from that direction some big honking cut bait. It's blood and juices are flowing. It's like, for them, it's like a barbecue as far as they're concerned. And they come in and investigate. This here, these are my alma mater's colors. I'm here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You know, alma mater. Crimson and white, although I wouldn't sell it under their name because I don't have a, you know. But anyway, red and white works better. And you got some crystal flash there. Once again, can you see that? As the light reflects and refracts light there. Yeah, attracts their attention. And there's times where I will just sit down. Now, another color that I experimented but didn't have much time this year is yellow and green, which is really probably the best color in the summers when the algae is flowing in the water below the dam there. But I don't like that. I don't like the bright yellow with the almost olive drab color and then the bright green. It just doesn't quite work right with me. I don't like that one at all. But that's kind of how I go about it. Now, I also have some what you call zonker strips made from rabbit tail. Here, you see that there? My friends, that will flow in the water. It's like Mr. T's mohawk, man. That's gray, designed to mimic more of a shad, and you still see that flash, right? And that'll flow just like a night crawler and a worm. And they'll hit it. They'll hit them. They'll hit just the flies. Because that motion, catfish are not just scavengers, man. They anything that has scent and anything that has motion, just like a bass, you know. Here's another one, sort of tan, which tan works. Those colors work well in my waters as well. Trying to see it. So I'm always trying to show you the flash. The flash is in there subtly. You may not be able to see it so well, but I'm just trying to give it a little action. But again, zonker strips. Deer hair, rabbit zonker strips, deer hair, flash, tinsel. And in there is, the shank is wrapped with lead, so it'll help it. I designed it for a fly rod to help it sink and give it weight for that big heavy fly rod. But I'm probably going to just be using these on the catfish rods. So that I keep them in a fly case. Fly tying case. And I've done tons of videos on these. You just have to go watch them as I tie them. You know, I've tons of videos on these on my channel. So and that's a good way to store them. I really need a larger one of these, but it needs something larger. But that'll hold, and I'll just put it right here in the bag and just keep them in there all the time. Here is my camera gear. Keep some of my camera gear. You know, various caps and filters and things and adapters for the camera. And then in the back here, this goes definitely beyond just planer board for the various filters here in the back pocket here. So it's a camera bag. I keep camera lenses. Do I have one? Yeah. Here's my 50mm lens Canon FD. And, you know, and I just keep all that in a bag there. But, ladies and gentlemen, just to recap, unless you're bored to death, that's how I approach planer board fishing for catfish. And I'm learning, you know, and the ultimate goal is to try to incorporate the hand line into the planer boards as well. We'll probably marry my hand line to this guy way back behind the boat, put about 200 foot of line back, and be done with it. This is 30-pound line here, Berkeley Big Game monofilament, and then have 4 rods out on planers, or 3 rods on planer boards, 1 rod directly below the boat, and then the hand line way back behind the boat. Let me know if you have any questions. What do you use? What luck have you had with planer boards? I'm enjoying it. It's nice. I'm happy that I don't have to lose jugs anymore. Jug fishing, I just got burnt out with jug fishing because I just kept losing jugs all the time. I just didn't want to pollute my river. I just couldn't do it. And that's why I do it. And my friends, just do a Google search. Look up planer board fishing. Get on forums and ask people, what are you using? How do you use it? Why do you use it? Watch other videos. You'll learn something from just about anybody who's using this. That's the beautiful thing. You're not restricted to one way of doing it. You can come up with a solution for you. Like for me, I use the paternoster rig, and we're talking about the pop-up paternoster with the float. When have you ever seen anybody do that? But that's how the Santee Cooper rig came about. You already had the Carolina rig, and you add the float to it. Now it's the Santee Cooper rig. Well, right. So, but anyway, go take the information I've given you, put it to use, come back and see what you found. I will see you later.